Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Hey there, poddies. We are officially in the 6th month of the year. And whilst today's episode is all about how you can use the best customer service to increase your client retention rate and how you can increase your upsell rate and generally make more profit, I also want to acknowledge something that's happened in very recent times over in the US. I do not normally talk about politics on the podcast. I don't normally talk about politics in general, if I'm honest. But I think that there has been a huge outcry over the last couple of weeks, and for all of the right reasons. And I want to address that here because one of the things that's been really important to me over the last week is not necessarily going onto the newsfeed and airing my views on certain topics, because frankly, there are other people who are better placed to do that than I am, who are more educated about some of the topics that I want to discuss with you than I am. But I think it's important that my community knows where I stand on certain things. For that reason, I've already been into my paid communities and have had key discussions there. And I've also been out to my email list and invited any of you who are on my email list to communicate with me further about some of the issues that we're seeing in recent time. I want to be really clear that I do not believe that there is anything that will ever happen in your life that will not impact your business in some way. Maybe not directly, but certainly indirectly, or through how you're feeling. Your performance can be reduced, your attention span can be shortened, your stress levels can be heightened, and all of those things impact on the ability that we have to make sales. Recently in the US, there was yet another tragic incident. George Floyd was horrifically killed. And whilst I would normally not talk about anything while the pain and trauma is raw, I think the worst thing that anyone can do at this moment is to not acknowledge it happening at all. The way that we choose to do that is obviously up to us. And what's been most important to me is not joining in the noise of social media, because I think a lot of that can become, whether it's inadvertently or hopefully not, but practiced performative marketing. And I don't want to contribute towards that. However, what I do think is really important is that everybody in my community knows where I stand on these issues, so that if you have different views to me, that's okay. You get to choose what you do next. But equally that people in my community who may be from the Black and minority ethnicity, or the Black, brown, people of colour communities, know that I am committed to doing everything I can to make the world a little bit more equal. Well, not even a little bit more equal, a lot more equal. Well, let's talk about it. So briefly, I think, because the episode is not about this. And if you do want episodes where I've talked about diversity in the online space, please feel free to go and check out the episode that I did with Sean Kyra last year, where we talked about diversity specifically in the online space. And I can include a list of resources in the show notes as well of things that I've been doing over the last few days. But I wanted to address this. There's been a lot of noise about it in the newsfeed, and my thoughts are pretty simple. One, I don't want racism to exist in my world. I have been extended for a lot of my life, for all of my life, an awful lot of privilege because of the way that I look. That really saddens me. There are not many things in this world that make me as angry or upset or as frustrated as people not being treated equally. And yet we live in a world still where, because of how people look, people think it is appropriate to treat them differently or to make things more challenging for them. I think that's disgusting. There are no other words that I have for that. And actually, one of the biggest things for me is that as a white woman who has always been afforded this privilege, because I'm white, it's really hard to talk about Because it doesn't matter how angry or frustrated or sad I am, I will never, ever, ever fully understand how it feels. And I know that it sounds trite, but I couldn't be more sorry about that. I really couldn't. I think it's so awful to have to deal with things on a daily basis that an entire other group of people will never have to experience. And I think it's incredibly unfair. But I believe it would be wrong of me to say that I empathise or that I understand, because I don't. And I can only apologise that I don't. And I can only commit to making things better. The second thing is that I sent out an email to my email list on Monday, and I explained the situation that I am in as a white woman who wants to support and show up and use her privilege for the benefit of others, and how difficult that is, because I don't know necessarily always the right way to have the conversation about it. I don't know the right things to say. I don't know always the right resources to use or view. And so I explained that the 3 steps that I was taking in my business to deal with this issue, one was to educate myself, my team, with allyship training, with resources, so we could better support our community, to empower students in my programs. Over the weekend, I went into my C-suite program and created a thread to explain to people that business is always going to be affected by the personal, and that I was more than happy for them to share resources, to discuss the issues, to discuss how they might be feeling, to lean on the community, to myself for support, that nothing was going to be too controversial to share, and that it would be unfair to expect otherwise. And then finally, with donations of time and energy and money, signing petitions for change, donating to things like the Black Lives Matter movement, along with other key resources. But it's not enough. And I know that. And so when I emailed my list, I asked, what can I do? If there is something, please tell me. And I was so overwhelmed and genuinely grateful to every person who reached out. And I was particularly grateful to the women of colour and the people of colour who reached out to explain to me what I could do better, what I could do differently, and what they felt like I was already doing well. And I wanted to share some of the bits from these emails with you anonymously, because I think that it's really important to understand how people feel. I had a lot of people, and I'm really grateful to all of you who said a version of, I'm reaching out to you because I think you genuinely care about this issue. I think you genuinely want to make it better for your community. I do. I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the person who said to me, and this sentence really, really stuck with me. They said that I genuinely like and respect you, and I think that you care about my experience as a Black woman in this white world. I heard that on a lot of levels. I also heard the person who said to me, I've bought from you and I love your teachings, but sometimes I feel isolated because I've been the only Black person in the group. I felt for the person who told me that, and they caveated this with, I might be wrong, but I don't see many people of colour on your podcast. And all of these people offered me their time. They offered to talk to me about what it is like to be a person of colour in Britain, in the US, in other countries around the world, so that I could ask my questions, so that I could have time where I wasn't being judged for having probably stupid questions, and probably some that if I voiced publicly, I might not voice in the right way. I don't know how to say everything. And I want to say a huge thank you to those people. I know I only sent out that email at the time this podcast goes live. It'll only be a week ago. And so if you've got that email and you thought, this is just Jess doing her bit for the cause, or like just doing it for the marketing, email me back. If there is something that I can do better, I will. If there is something that I can do to make our world a more equal place, I will. And I want you to know that I'm 100% committed to making our world a more equal place for everybody. So what I did after sending that email was I took some time because I had some really great feedback. I had people, you know, who'd openly said, I wish there were more people of colour on your podcast. And I thought, well, do you know what? I would love that. And, you know, the reason that we don't is because, let's be honest, I'm too lazy to look for podcast guests. And the majority of people who pitch me to be on the podcast are white. It's not because I don't want people of colour. It's because I don't often get pitches from them. And I thought about that, and I thought, wow, you know, it would be so easy for me to say, oh, well, it's because people of colour don't pitch me often. But like I said there, well, that's lazy, isn't it? I could go out and look for more. In the meantime, there are some incredible people of colour and diverse podcast guests that I've had on my show. And I am incredibly grateful to them. And in some of these episodes, we've discussed what it's like, what the diversity issue looks like in the online space and beyond. Please feel free, like I say, go and check out the episode with Sean Kyra, look at episodes with Sabia Voraji. Osman Sharif came on the show and was incredible. We've had Neil Patel on the show. We've had a lot of different people. In fact, we've even had Kay Fabella, who now has her own podcast on diversity and inclusion. It's great, by the way. If you haven't met Kay, we've actually got the link to her show in the show notes. So feel free to go in and check out her podcast all about diversity and inclusion. We've had some incredible people on the show, and I don't name them to try and prove a point. That's not about this exercise, but in case you're also somebody who is listening thinking, I wish I could be on the show, but I haven't heard that many people, please pitch me. I might not always hear from you, so I might not always know to ask. But if you want to come on and you've got a great topic idea and you think it'd be valuable for my audience, let me know. And then I can do something. Don't sit and think that I will only have people who look like me on my show or in my communities or as guest experts. That's not the case. I also sat down and looked at diversity in my business and looked at the kind of people on my team and who we hire. And on my team, we have an awful lot of people from diverse backgrounds. That might not mean that they are a person of colour, but there are a lot of people on my team from a variety of different countries, from a variety of different language backgrounds. And that's something I really, really appreciate. It's also something that I want to do more of, and to hire a more diverse and more global team base. Someone else also pointed out to me, and this was hugely valuable, that race is an issue and has been an issue for as long as people have been allowed to travel the globe. And so we're all looking at this issue as being something that is not necessarily new, but something that's come to public attention. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that because I don't always understand and I don't always notice. I would be the first person to step up if I ever saw somebody being treated differently because of race. And I have done. And I have stepped up in the past for people who've been treated differently because of race, because of their sexuality, because of their gender. Sometimes it makes me feel guilty in my programs that I don't always consider race or sexuality or gender. Not because I don't care, not because I don't want people to feel comfortable, but because to me, and maybe this is maybe this is a justification. I'm walking it out with you guys, right? Because to me, it doesn't matter. I'm also hyper aware as I say that it probably doesn't matter to me because I'm not considered different. That stings. But I think it's important to notice. You know, when people emailed me and told me about how they were feeling, when people made the time to talk to me about these situations, it got me thinking about the diversity in my client programs. Now, traditionally, I haven't even, you know, like I say, it hasn't been one of the things that I've not been interested in, but it hasn't been something that I've focused on growing because for me, I assume that my ideal clients will buy from me and people who don't resonate with me won't. It didn't matter about the colour of their skin or the sexuality that they chose or the gender that they identified with. An ideal client is an ideal client. There's someone I want to spend time with, somebody who wants to learn, somebody who's interested, somebody who wants to do the best that they can do. However, again, I realised how short-sighted that was. And so I looked back over the last couple of years, and typically there have been some of my programs that were not as diverse as others. My membership certainly was not hugely diverse, and that makes me sad. In fact, somebody emailed me last week in response to my email and said, sometimes I felt lonely. I felt isolated because there wasn't anybody else who could share the same experiences that I have. That also stings. To know that somebody was in my community and felt isolated because they didn't necessarily have similar experiences to identify with is really hard, because I can't change that now. I can't change that particular experience, and I wish I could. And I could say that I wish I'd known about it at the time, but really that's something that as a business owner I should have thought about, isn't it? And that's what I'm learning, or that's what I'm trying to learn. So I went through and I started to look at my programs now, and I wanted to give you guys a little report, if you like. It'll keep me accountable and make sure that I'm committed to grow my community in different ways. And so, as you all know, the only program that I'm selling this year is the C-Suite. We currently have just over 50 members, which I'm very excited about. Thanks, guys. Our target is to get to 100 members by the end of the year. Now, in the C-Suite, I went through and I looked at the exact numbers and the percentages and things. And for ease, I'm just going to do this in terms of percentages because that makes my life a bit easier. And because I went through all the hassle of actually using a calculator, which, I know it sounds lame, but if I used a calculator, I feel like I should be rewarded by that and get to talk about it in percentages. So out of the C-Suite, there are 76% of people in the program who are not from the UK or from the US. That makes me really happy. 76% of people, they may have dual nationality. They may be living in different countries in mainland Europe, outside of mainland Europe, Canada. But 76% of people are not UK or US nationals. I really like that. 40.5%. Also, side note, if anyone can explain to me how 0.5% works when you're talking about human beings. So let's round down. 40% would be considered to be a member of the BAME group. Also makes me happy. Not happy enough, but happy. It means that there are multiple people within the BAME community who saw the C-Suite as a great place for them to learn, to grow, and to be considered equal, which they are, in my mind, and that of the community. That makes me really happy. It's something I'm committed to growing, although I'm not sure how, but again, I'm working on it. And then finally, 45% of people inside the C-Suite have English as a second language or a supplementary language. We have people from across the globe. We have even some people who are incredibly talented who speak multiple languages. But we have people from all corners of the globe speaking a variety of different languages. And the common language that we speak is English. But we have people who speak a variety of other languages, including Polish, French, Ukrainian, Portuguese, many, many others. I'm really pleased about that. This isn't a diversity exercise for me. It's not a tick box. I want to be very clear that it's not. What I want to do is encourage you all to start looking at these numbers. Because when I looked at the numbers, I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy about that. But it also represents that I can do more. And I'm happier about that. And it means that a big focus of mine this year with my business will be, how can I support these groups of people in my business? How can I make it clear that my community is one that is global, genuinely, that is diverse, genuinely, where I want to support people from around the world, from different races, sexualities, and genders? Some of these questions are quite big, and I don't know that I'm going to have the answers immediately. I don't even know if I'm going to have them in 12 months. regardless of whether or not I have the clear answers, I'm going to keep working towards the goal. And ultimately, the goal is to make the world a more equal place, to make the world a place where skin color and sexuality and gender and where they don't matter. That might not be achieved in my lifetime. It might not be achieved because of anything that I do. But I figure that there are enough of us working around the world to try and make it happen. And it's really important that we do that. It's really important we do it from a humanity perspective, because, you know, I think part of being a human being is accepting that other human beings may not look, sound, or act in the same way that you do. And you get over that. And you deal with other human beings on a human level. Are they good people? Are they nice people? Do you like talking to them? Are they interesting? Do they do a good job? Do they have meaningful work in the world? They make an impact. They make you laugh. You know, that's how we should be looking at human beings and accepting human beings, not based on anything else. It's also important economically. And given that this is a sales-focused / business podcast, I think economically it's really important that we encourage diversity in this space. For me, it's whenever I'm buying anything, and again, I always, when I'm starting to think about this conversation and talking about it, like, well, I've never cared if the person I buy from is a person of colour or whether they're white. Why not? Well, because I want the best thing that's going to solve my problem. I don't care what the person looks like. I don't care about their sexuality or their gender. I don't buy from them because of those things. Equally, I don't buy from them despite those things. They're not a factor for me. Can they solve my problem? Yes. Are they a good person? Yes. Do I want to give them my money? Yes. I say this, and I'm also hyper aware that I'll be saying it, and you know, it could be because of my own unconscious bias, because like I say, I've never experienced these problems. So maybe I don't seek out to buy from the most diverse candidates in the market, and maybe I should. Again, it's a learning curve for me. And I know this is a hard conversation. I'm going to publish this episode and I'm going to be afraid, because I don't know that I'm saying things in the best way. I don't know that I'm communicating things in the best way. And I don't want to offend anyone. You know, I think one of the biggest things that I will say about myself that I'm very proud of is that I'm community focused. I always have been. I'm very, very focused on how people feel and the experiences they get and the results that they have. It makes me ashamed to think that I didn't factor in other parts of that discussion, like why people might feel isolated, or potentially why people might feel like they're having different experiences, or why they might not want to buy into my programs in the first place because they don't see diversity. I didn't think of those things because I've never had to think of those things as a white person. That doesn't mean that I get an excuse or a free pass. It means I'm lazy. And, you know, I laugh not in, oh, that's hilarious, but in a kind of, I'm frustrated at myself for not noticing these things earlier. So I guess what I want to say really is that if you have ever felt like I don't get the discussion, you know, there is something I could be doing better, or there's something that I can learn differently, please tell me. I'm not going to have this perfect because I'm not a diversity and inclusion consultant. I'm probably not ever going to be a diversity and inclusion consultant. It's just not my bag. Sales is kind of where I'm happy. But if there is something that I can do to make the lives of people in my community easy or easier, then let me know. It doesn't mean that in empowering one group of people, I want to disempower another. I just want everyone to have a better time of it. And so if there is something that I can do differently or I can support, reach out. I would also encourage people to, if I've got this wrong, this bit of the discussion wrong, I'd really appreciate it if you could reach out and be constructive. I know that not everyone is afforded that opportunity. But I can only get better if, especially around this discussion or these types of discussions, I can only get better if people give me constructive feedback. So if you think that I've said something wrong and you're just like, well, Jess, you're just crap, maybe don't write that in an email. I won't end up doing anything with that kind of email anyway. But if you think, well, Jess, you sounded pretty awkward having that conversation. It's true, I am, because I've no idea. I have no idea how to do this in the best way. And you think that there are resources that I would benefit from, or you think that there are training materials that my team could use, or you think that there are ways that I could be doing things differently, reach out and tell me that, because I genuinely want to know. As a white woman, it's so hard to broach this topic. It really is. And I don't know how to do it any differently. So everything that I've said is not intended to cause offense. I genuinely am angry and hurt and saddened and frustrated and all of those things. And I know that this issue has been going on for a long time. And honestly, I'm just sorry that I didn't do anything on a wider scale before. Because in different incidences, in isolated instances, I've always been somebody who would step up and say when something was unfair. This is just bigger. And I'm going to try and do the best that I can. I'm just going to warn you that I'm not always going to get it right. So what I'd rather do is offer everybody the opportunity to have an open discussion with me about it. You all have my email address. You can email me anytime. You can say, hey, Jess, you did this episode and it was great, but didn't take it into consideration, this, or this. It doesn't necessarily mean that I will always be able to change things instantly. But I will always be open for the discussion. I will always be open to learning, and I'll always be open to changing things to make the world a better place in general. That's all I really wanted to say on it. I'm aware that took longer than 5 minutes, so I'm very sorry for anyone who's just listened to this and been like, well, this wasn't what I was expecting. But I think it's important. And I think when it comes to life as a human, it's important. I think when it comes to business, it's really important. And I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. So if you have been feeling awkward or overwhelmed or any other emotion around what's been going on recently, I'm really sorry. And I will commit to talking more about issues that I find difficult to raise. And I will commit to, having eyes wide open when it comes to certain issues in the space. And I will commit to changing and making my own communities more inclusive. That's it, really. It's a weak way to end that statement, isn't it? Oh, dear. Well, I would say anyway, but it's not anyway. It's and in this episode, I want to talk about customer service. It's not a huge topic, so don't worry if you've been listening to me waffle on for like 15 minutes. It's cool. I'm not going to be like a teacher here. You don't have to stay for 3 hours and learn all the things. Even Max is bored. He's like, just stop droning. So here's the thing. Customer service, I had two very different experiences recently. One led to a company getting paid more money willingly. One led to a company getting on the wrong side of Jess. And even though they eventually made more money, I then went out and told all my friends never to use them. So, it's an important thing. Customer service has always been an element of business that people don't realize will actually make or break your sales process. And so I wanted to talk about these two experiences, what I learned from them, and what you can use to help you in your business navigate some of the challenges that come with running and operating a business, and how you can use them for good. For me, it feels like it kind of nicely segues from the earlier conversation that we've just had, because there is nothing that you can do to ruin your business quicker than upsetting your customers, than not making them feel acknowledged or heard or valued. And it's one of the ways that people often really mess up, not their sales process per se, but their upsell process for sure, and their customer retention for sure. So just briefly, obviously I had 2 sales processes recently. I had a company that I ordered a wall map from, a 3D wall map. It's made out of wood, oak, birch, and something else. Another type of wood. And it looks incredible. It's got all of the countries on it. For those of you who are particularly interested, my personal Facebook profile, didn't realize this, but is actually set to public most of the time. So you can absolutely go and check out my living room wall if you want to on there. Scroll back until I think I finished it like end of May. And you can see what it looks like on the wall. It is incredible. I've had so many messages about it. All of my friends are now buying them for their walls. And the company I bought them from, Enjoy the Wood, based in the Ukraine, were absolutely incredible. So I have been excited about getting a wall map for a very long time. I'm somebody who loves to travel. And obviously this year I have cancelled 2 holidays, one to New York back in March, and I have just had to postpone my Norway trip to see polar bears and whales and all those kinds of good things at the end of July, because of travel restrictions and coronavirus. And so I decided, I was like, now is the time. I'm redecorating. That's what I'm doing with my lockdown time, redecorating, to do something a bit different and buy one of these maps that I've wanted for years and years and years. I'd actually seen the company originally. They were on a program in the UK called Dragon's Den. They were successfully funded, and they are an incredible organization who just produce, I can only describe it as art. Like, it really is a piece of artwork. And when I ordered it, I was really excited. One of the great features that Enjoy the Wood have is that you can choose for free to have a little on the one country that means a lot to you. You can have a little heart or a little house stamped on it. So you could choose the country that you live in, or you could choose a country that really resonated with you. And I had the time of my life in Norway in December, and I was like, oh my goodness, I would love to have a little heart just imprinted in Norway, because it was just cool. And I was like, yeah, I want that done. Anyway, me being me, I get through to the checkout process and I do all the stuff, I pay for it. And in my excitement to get the wall map, I completely forget to add into the notes section, please could you put this little heart stamp in Norway? So I email them, and Eleanor at Enjoy the Wood emails me back and says, no worries, it's fine. Your map is being made on Monday at this time. So it's all good. I'll send them a note and they will do that for you. And I was like, oh, great. 2 weeks goes past. I get the delivery notification from the delivery company, and they say your map's going to be arriving in 24 hours or whatever. And I get it, and it was packaged beautifully. It came in this really cool box that had like different country outlines on it. It had Enjoy the Wood stamped all over it. Everything was packaged really well. It was all in like polystyrene and all this kind of thing. Really, really lovely. And I open it up and I start putting it on the wall. And as I start looking at the pieces, I noticed 2 things. One, Norway didn't have a little heart stamp on. And I was like, oh, that's a shame, never mind. Because I was really excited. And the second thing I noticed was that there was a little bit of varnish that had come off of Argentina. So I emailed the company and I said, hey, look, a little bit of varnish come off, no problem. But would you know what I could put on top of it? Because it's going on a sunny wall and I want to make sure I'm looking after it. I was like, and also, Norway didn't come with a heart on. I was like, just to let you know, it's really not a problem. It's beautiful. I'm already putting it on the wall. About, 3 hours later, I get an email back again from Eleanor, and she says, hey, look, I'm really sorry that Norway didn't come with a heart on it. We're going to send you out a new piece so that we can get it right. And Argentina, don't worry about that. We're going to send you a new piece for it. And I emailed her back and I was like, oh, you don't need to, like, it's totally cool. And she was like, no, we want you to be happy. Like, we want you to have the best product. So we've already done it. We're going to send it out for you over the next couple of days, and it will be with you and you can put your map on the wall. Now, I'm obviously very slow, and I didn't realize you had to put every piece up individually. So this took me a while, but my new pieces came, and again, they were in great packaging. Everything was done perfectly. I was so happy that when I got the automated email to review the company, I immediately, as soon as I got it, went and did the review. I put a photo on it, which I never normally would. I talked about how great it was, and I talked about how amazing their customer service was and how great Eleanor in particular had been. I then, which I wasn't expecting, about probably 2 days after that, I got an email back from Eleanor who said, we're so happy. Like, thank you so much for this review. We're so happy that you're happy. And, we hope that you stay happy and healthy and safe during the rest of this. Remember to recommend us to your friends if they need anything. Personal email. I thought, how great is that? How amazing is that experience? As such, I've raved about them everywhere. I've talked about them on social media. I am in my content creation week at the moment. I have got emails that I'm going to be sending out and talking about them. I've given my friends discount codes. I have told people about it at the allotment / yelled it over my fence. I have taken photos and put them everywhere that I possibly can. And I will recommend them again and again and again and again and again, because their customer service was good. They communicated with me really openly. They tried their best to resolve the problem. I didn't even mind when an issue arose because they were so nice about it. And they just wanted to help me. And that was really obvious. However, the delivery company, I'm not going to name names, obviously, but the delivery company that had to deliver the item, they weren't great. And the experience that I had with them wasn't good. And it was very, very different. So what happened was, when my parcel was being delivered, there was a customs charge, which I was like, cool. It wasn't actually that much. So I was like, I'd been expecting it because Enjoy the Wood had told me there will be a customs, like an import charge, because in the UK, if an item is over a certain amount of money, they just give you an import charge. Fine, not an issue. Very, very transparent. However, the delivery company, at no point did they tell me how much I needed to pay. They sent me an email on the day that my item was supposed to arrive saying, oh, your item's going to arrive. It never did. Then they sent me an email saying that they tried to deliver it. And obviously at the moment we're all in lockdown, so I wasn't anywhere else, but it obviously hadn't arrived. And at that point I got on the phone with them because I was like, hey, let's just talk to a human being and see what's going on. Now, I could have caught someone on the really wrong day, but I had to have 4 different phone calls to try and find out where my item was, because it didn't seem like anyone really knew why it hadn't been delivered or what was going on. Each time I was on hold for about 45 minutes, which, as you can imagine, not great, especially when the holding music is like that really annoying, I don't know, ding, ding, ding music, as opposed to an actual tune that you can hum along to. That wouldn't have been so bad. Anyway, I spoke to 3 different people who all assured me that it was just that they had a temporary driver. They had a cover driver. They didn't know where I lived. They'd banged on the wrong door. They'd deliver it again later on in the day. Never arrived. So the next day when I phoned them to explain that it hadn't arrived, like they told me to do, the woman that I ended up talking to was really angry about it. And it was about 10:30 in the morning. And I was actually in quite a good mood because I was hoping that my parcel was going to arrive. So I was like, yay, it's going to get there. Full of hope and optimism. And after being on hold for 38 minutes, and I spoke to the woman, I said, look, I completely get it. Is there anything I can do? Do you want me to walk down to the local depot or something like that? She said to me, you are aggravating the situation by keeping on calling to find your item. And I've spoken to over 500 people this morning who also have the same issues. So your problem isn't significant. And I was like, oh, what's significant to me? Because it's my item and I've paid for delivery and it hasn't arrived and nobody knows where it is. I was like, so it's kind of, and she at that point went, I have nothing else that I can do for you other than I've told you that the local depot will be in touch and they will get the driver to send something out to you when they can, and hung up. All in all, wasn't the best phone call I've ever had. And, we all know that I'm quite transparent about communication. So when I had that response, as you can imagine, my face was not one of joy and sunshine. So I phoned the local depot. In the 3 phone calls the day prior, the guy gave me the number to phone them directly, just in case. His name was Hayden. And so I spoke to Hayden. I said, hey, look, this hasn't arrived. And the lady at head office seems kind of stressed out. Like they might have a lot on. What can be done? Anyway, Hayden sorted the issue. I actually said to him, look, I need to go out. I need to go to the allotment. I need to water my plants. And I've waited in until I think it was about 3 o'clock. And I was like, nothing's arrived yet. That's cool. I'm just going to go to the allotment. So maybe you could let the driver know that if they're going to drop it off, they just need to drive it outside the front door. About 5:30 that evening, I get a phone call directly from Hayden, who said to me, hey, my shift is finished, but I wanted to make sure that you knew the driver's called in and he said that he's left the parcel outside your front door. Is that okay? And I was like, great. And I said to him, I was like, Hayden, could you send me some kind of like review thing so I can say how great you were? during this process? And he was like, yeah, of course, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And he sent me a little email, and I emailed his manager and I said, he's been great. Like, he's been your shining star. Hopefully that got him some kind of bonus. Like, that's what I always hope when I do that kind of thing. But the experience was very different. They were really lucky that they had a customer service person like Hayden, who ended up being the superstar, who ended up going above and beyond, who ended up communicating like openly and transparently. Because I would never use that company again based on the other 3 representatives that I talked to. And I've told all of my friends, you know, because the average customer who is unhappy, they'll tell 10 other people. 10. The average customer who's happy, they'll tell 2 to 3, right? So I've told all my friends, I was like, oh, I'd never use company X again. Like, it was really bad. I paid over the odds for this delivery to make sure they got there on the right day and it didn't turn up and blah, 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 blah. Like you do when you're annoyed about something. And it got me to thinking about all of the times that I see companies labeled as shipping services. And so now, because obviously in lockdown, all I'm doing is ordering stuff, I'm like, okay, whenever I see that particular company listed, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get it shipped from them. I'm going to choose this company or I'm going to choose that company. And it might cost me more. Those shipping costs might actually cost me more. But I'm like, nah, they're reliable. Their customer service is really good. I already have that pre-programmed into my mind not because I had an experience where something wasn't delivered on time. Like, let's face it, that happens with 90% of delivery firms, so that's fine. But because the service around it, the customer care around it was so lacking. Every single, let's say 90% of the people I spoke to didn't care at all. But one person did. One person went above and beyond. And for me, having 90% of people in your company not care about what you do means that customers probably not going to come back because they don't want that experience again. What we want is a customer service experience filled with the 10%, you know, the people who will go above and beyond. And it's something that I bang on to my team about all of the time, because good customer service means that customers come back. It means that customers refer us. It means that also when times are hard, customers still want to keep paying us. You know, coronavirus has not been a picnic for anybody. There have been a few things that I've done in my business to try and make life easier for my customers. Do you know, we had one person who said, look, you know, I really can't manage this at this time. Like, so I'm gonna stop something, or I'm gonna stop a service. And we were like, okay, cool. Like, we can pause it for you, come back whenever you're ready. They were like, we really want to. It's just going to take us a couple of months. Fine. For other customers, we made different arrangements. We halved our payment plans for a couple of months. We said to everybody in the C-suite, like, if you want to make half payments for a couple of months, we can absolutely do that, just to make sure that financially it's not difficult for you. We had people who took us up on that option and people didn't. Guess what we didn't have? A bunch of people not paying us and not communicating. Transparency is key. How you make people feel is key. Customer service is essential if you want customers to keep buying from you, if you want customers to be happy, if you want customers to get the best experience, to keep showing up, and ultimately if you want to retain them as customers, as referral sources, as anything. So the 3 top tips that I would give you to improve your customer service abilities, and obviously to help you retain more customers and make more money, are as follows. 1, train yourself or your team to communicate with all customers in the same way. I don't mean have a script, because that doesn't work. But I mean, you can't have somebody who's nice to one customer because that customer's always really happy and smiley, and then not nice to another customer just because they don't put exclamation points at the end of every single sentence. That's me. I totally do that. You have to make people understand that they're getting a cohesive service. And ultimately, having that process means that it's much easier for customers to understand what's going to happen next. If you train everybody the same, if everybody uses the same process, then customers know every time they get in touch, oh, okay, cool. When we email Jess, we're going to get a response within 48 hours. Great. You know, they know that that's going to happen. If they email my team, okay, great, we're going to get a response within 24 hours, Monday to Friday. Okay, cool. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter why. That's the process. And so that's what we do. And that means that everybody understands the boundaries. It means that if you have to communicate that something's going to be delayed and you communicate transparently, people know about it, so they're comfortable. But treating all of your customers the same, regardless of how they treat you, is super, super important. Because when people are unhappy, we all do crazy things. I don't advocate ever being really rude to somebody just because, I don't know, just because you're not having the best day or because something didn't happen that you wanted to happen. Like, but if a customer service representative is ever rude to me, you can bet that I'm not happy about that. And you can absolutely bet that I complain. Like, I might not care about the initial problem, but 100%, if somebody's rude to me, I'm going to find the manager and I'm going to complain about that. Especially because I'm always polite and courteous, and I try really hard to be those things. So there is no excuse for treating your customers badly just because you're having a bad day. Equally, if they're rude to you, it doesn't mean that you get to go off on one at them because of every other customer that's ever done that you've been nice to. You know, if possible, kill them with kindness. I have this kind of mentality in my business where I'm like, look, if you say something to me that is rude or unwarranted or whatever, I'm probably just not going to respond to it. You know, anyone who emails in with loads of like vitriol, I just don't email them back because I'm not going to let that get into my headspace for the customers that I then have to deal with also that day. It's not fair on them. Whereas if somebody emails me something constructive, I'm like, great, okay, cool. How can I use this? What can we do? You know, let's get on board. Let's help that person. Let's help other people who might be feeling or experiencing the same things. And my team is the same. So it's always really interesting to me. Do you remember if you've ever been in a shop and like people always get like this? I used to work in retail. So I remember being a teenager and customers would always be like, I would like a refund on this. And I'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry, but you've had it for 4 years and our refund period is only 12 months. So unfortunately you can't. And they would kick off, I want to speak to a manager. And I'd be like, okay, they're going to tell you the same thing, but sure. Like, you know, it's that kind of mentality. So everybody on your team needs to treat your customers in the same way. They need to be personable. They need to communicate transparently. They need to have regular and consistent communication, like be open around when that is. And they actually need to try and do their best to help the customer and communicate to the customer that they are trying to do their best to help them. All right. The other thing is be polite, even if you can't solve the problem. So, you know, sometimes we'll get people who email me and they'll say, oh, Jess, you know, things are really tough right now and I'd really love a free spot on your course. And I'm like, hey, you know, I'm really sorry that things are tough for you right now. Unfortunately, it just wouldn't be fair on my paying clients. It's polite. It's still a no. I can't solve that particular problem. Equally, we have had customers in the past that have been like, hey, Jess, I bought this from you 5 years ago. And you know, I've noticed that you've released a program that's sort of similar now or covers a similar area, and I'd like that one instead. Can I have a refund on this one and then have that one? I'm like, I'm really sorry, but unfortunately you only get access to the program you purchased. So I'm really sorry about that. But, you know, if you want to upgrade to this version or you want to buy this program that is different, then that's cool. And, you know, we'd love for you to do that. And it will support you with this, this, and this, which the original wouldn't. That's cool too. Yeah, it's absolutely fine to say no and to be polite about it. It's absolutely fine to set a boundary and be polite about it. It's absolutely fine to accept that a problem has happened. Perhaps you're in a product-based space and you have to say to somebody, I'm really sorry, it hasn't been delivered. We'll talk to the company, we'll talk to the delivery firm for you, but we can't magic it up out of thin air. Be polite. People will understand. These things happen. You know, they do. It's unfortunate. Likely when it's tied to a purchase, like a product or a service, it's emotional. But if you're polite about it and you're genuinely trying to do your best, people recognize that. Maybe not as you're explaining it to them, but afterwards they will. And they'll value it, and then they'll come back and they'll say that your service was great, and they'll recommend people anyway. And then finally, and I can't stress this one enough, make people feel valued. When I called the delivery company, I spoke to 3 people after being on hold for a substantial amount of time, and not one of them said sorry. Sorry your order is delayed. Sorry you're experiencing this. In fact, I was told that it wasn't significant. They'd spoken to 500 other people, and so basically nobody cared, was what I took from that. And it's why I was so angry about it. You know, it's why I told all my friends how bad the service was, because I was like, well, they just didn't care. They didn't care about my parcel. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about, you know, me waiting in or doing anything or whatever. That was what made me angry and upset. Not the fact that it wasn't delivered on time. That's kind of just something you expect. If you live in the UK, delivery companies here are not renowned for always being on time. It's one of those things, like, it happens. But you have to make people feel valued when they're having a problem, so that they understand the problem isn't, or no, so that you understand the problem is not the biggest issue. The actual issue is never the biggest issue. How you resolve the issue is. So if you make somebody feel like they're not valued because you're like, oh, well, you didn't buy the VIP version of that program, so you just never get access to updates and this, that, and the other. That doesn't incentivize somebody to want to buy from you again. It certainly doesn't incentivize them to spend more money with you. But if you say, hey, look, I'm really sorry, like, you're such a valued customer, you bought in at this level. Unfortunately, this level doesn't have that access. But here's the thing, with the problems that you're experiencing right now, I've gone and identified a couple of modules that will really, really help you. At this level, they explain X and Y and Z, and that should get you going. But if not, here's a link to book a call with Jess. You can talk to her about it, and maybe there's an opportunity to upgrade or something. Right? That's very different. It explains to people they are valued, that you do care. Okay, yes, this problem cannot necessarily be resolved in the way that they want it, in the time frame that they want it, but it gives them options. It shows that you've gone above and beyond, that you actually care about them staying. And then, you know what? Make your existing customers always feel valued. Be in touch with them. When somebody finishes up with you, drop them a line to see how they're getting on from time to time. Reach out when they've done something great, like launched a podcast or a book or something, and be like, hey, well done, that's really cool. Customer service isn't just about dealing with issues. It's about maintaining an ongoing relationship with customers, even after they've bought and gone. Because making them feel valued, reminding people that you have this personal relationship with them, ultimately it helps them continue buying from you. It helps them to refer other people. It helps them remember that you are a human. So if they do ever have an issue, guess whose inbox they're not going to come effing and blinding into? They're going to be patient with you because they accept you're a human. Sometimes things happen. You're doing your best. And they will feel, when you value them, they'll feel that. And they'll know that. And so they'll treat you better. They'll refer more people to you. They'll continue buying from you. They will rave about you, everywhere. They'll be like me. They'll put pictures online everywhere all the time and be really excited to share what they're doing with you or what they've bought from you. And that's what we want. We want customers who, I often say to my team, like, getting people to buy stuff is not hard. Retaining customers, that's the big job. Like, that's the bit that's really important. Resolving issues and things, that's not easy, but the way that we do it can really help us sell more and make people feel better about buying from us in the first place. Doesn't mean that we all need guarantees, doesn't mean that, you need to have like huge refund periods or anything. It means make them feel valued at every stage in the process, communicate transparently at every stage in the process, and be polite to people. And guess what? You'll find you get less hate mail in your inbox, you'll sell more, and actually you'll end up getting a lot more organic or word of mouth sales than you would have before. Hopefully that's been helpful. I know this has been a big episode. I know it's been a long episode, but I feel like we covered a lot today. I feel like it's all relevant. It's all linked. And like I say, if anyone does have any thoughts, please do reach out. I know that there are some awkward conversations that everybody in the world is going to have right now. And like I say, we're not always going to know how to have them. But I think the key thing now is to be open to having them and to making the right decisions, to making communication around every issue transparent and easy to navigate, and to making your people feel valued, no matter who they are or how you're trying to do that. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great week.